All right, we have a few stragglers still coming in, but let's get started tonight. My name is Taylor. I'm the education coordinator here at the Utah Apartment Association. I'm very glad to see a good crowd come out tonight. We have some very exciting topics. But first, I have a couple of announcements I wanted to go over. First, I want to tell you about some other educational opportunities that we have coming up. First, next month's meeting in June will be landscaping issues and successfully renting to pets. Those will be the same last week of June. It'll be on a Thursday here, on a Wednesday down in Orem, and on the Tuesday before that in Ogden. So if you're interested in those classes, come to them. And if you can't make it, as always, we'll film the classes and put them up on our website. We have our golf tournament coming up in July. So if you are a golfer, you may want to come. We'd love to invite you to come along. Please email our event coordinator at events@uaahq.org. She'd be happy to slot you in. And the golf tournament is on July 15th at the Talons Cove Golf Course. We also have our cruise coming up. Some of you may have heard about this already, but I want to make sure everybody knows. Our cruise will be November 29th for 7 days. And we'll be leaving out of Florida, and we will be doing the Eastern Caribbean. And if you are a member of the association and you refer a new member, make sure that they put down that they were referred by you, because you get entered for a free cruise and free airfare. So make sure you do that. We have a pickle jar. We have about 35 people who have done that so far, so the competition wouldn't be too stiff. So you want to get your name in that jar as many times as possible. In addition to that, by the way, you get a $25 gift card from UAA you can use on any of our resources or anything from us. And the person you refer gets $25 that they can use as well. We also have our UPro classes. Once again, every month we have these at least once a month in the morning and once a month in the evening. This month we are going to have one of our lawyers, Kirk Cullmore Jr., speak on legal procedures on June 11th in the evening class, and we will have the morning class be, I believe, marketing. And so if you're interested in the UPro classes, it's $3.99 for 32 hours worth of classes. This is everything we can think to teach property managers. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you come and talk to me later and we go over those things. So we're going on. Let me introduce our presenter today, Dave with Firebird. We're going to have him speak about fire prevention.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There we go. Come on, you mean you're not excited about fire prevention?
Sure.
Oh boy.
All right, I feel the enthusiasm here. This is great. Okay, well, let's have some fun then. Let's talk about something that you love. You love your property, right? You love the buildings that you manage and all. Okay, so let's talk about them for a second. Each of you have a piece of paper and a pen, right? If you don't, I know a great assistant. Okay, he's not my assistant, but he'll help me anyway. Taylor will get you a piece of paper and a pen. So with that piece of paper, I want you to draw an outline of one of the buildings that you manage. So maybe you manage a fourplex, draw an outline of that. All right, if it's a multi-family complex with a ton of building or a ton of units in it, draw the outline of the building. Okay?
Top view?
Top view, yes. So yeah, looking down from the sky.
Oh, the sky.
So if I'm in a plane and looking down on it, draw the outline. Here's what I want you to do on that outline. I want you to put an X by everything around that building that has to do with fire prevention. Everything.
On the outside?
Everything on the outside. Yep. Okay, but interesting that you asked like a question. Well, here's the second part of the assignment. Next to that drawing, I want you to draw an outline of what the unit looks like inside it. So if it's a fourplex, each of the units are typically very similar. Draw an outline of the floor plan of that fourplex. Okay? And do the same thing on that picture. Put an X and label everything that has to do with fire prevention that's inside that unit. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to do that. I don't want anything like this to happen. That's kind of ugly, huh? About 30 more seconds. Tough assignment, huh?
Can't throw it again.
So hopefully you've got two pictures on this piece of paper with a bunch of X's. And with labels next to that X to identify why you put the X there, of course. Anything to do with fire prevention. All right. Tell me what you got on there. I want to know what the X's are.
Smoke alarms.
All right, smoke alarms. All right. I want to know if somebody didn't put smoke alarms on there. Okay, you don't have to raise your hand, but please tell me that everybody had that on there. Okay. What else you got on there?
Fire hydrant.
Okay, a fire hydrant. Very good.
Fire extinguisher.
Okay, extinguishers. What else? Sprinklers. Okay. What else?
Outside water faucet.
Okay, so a hose bib or something? All right, put that down there.
Range top extinguishers.
What's that?
Range top extinguishers.
Range top extinguishers. I'll call them canisters. All right, you talk about the little things. What else?
There's hose hookups on the outside of the building.
Okay, hose hookups? All right, I'll put them down. What else?
Circuit breakers?
Great, circuit breaker. What else?
Gas meter shut off?
Hey, gas shut off. What else?
Got a pea gravel roof. Is that-
Peak gravel roof? I don't know, you guys tell me. You think that's fire prevention?
Well, it's not gonna burn that part anyway.
I'll put it down. Why not?
shape.
Peak gravel.
It's this better.
Okay, we'll stop right there. All right. Did your class help you just now? Some of you missed some of the things that are on that list that should have been there. I see a lot of heads nodding. Okay, if we talk for another 10 minutes, I bet I could double that list that's on there because you keep thinking about it. But if my colleague, the fireman, was here, there's some things on there that I bet you would never get on the list that you need to be thinking about. Now, I'm going to give you some assignments with your properties that I want you to do that the fireman's asked us to take care of here tonight. He'd be here, but fire duties sometimes happen. So he asked me to take care of these classes. He's one of my colleagues. All right, so this is interesting. I'm going to write another word up here. Can everybody read that? Suppression. So give me a little debate here. Are all these prevention devices or are they suppression devices? Because I said prevention, remember?
That's true.
Is there a difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
One's trying to put it out, one's trying to prevent it from starting.
All right, let's
Not
put
all
a,
of those are prevention, there's suppression.
yeah, I'm going to put a scale up here. I'm going to write prevention here. I'm going to write prevention here. But I'm going to put a 0 here, and I'm going to put disaster here. Okay? Both have prevention, right? But on this side, 0 means nothing happened. I've totally eliminated the problem. On this end, that's where this helps. If I have some suppression, right? Because I can prevent disaster. So let's talk a little bit more about the outside. Does that make sense, that sliding scale there? Okay. By show of hands, who wants to be on this side of the scale? Okay, yesterday I taught this class and somebody raised their hand. So I looked at her and I said, you just got fired, I think. In more ways than one.
Maybe they wanted a new piece of new property. They wanted the house to burn down so they could start over.
They got good insurance.
Okay, so convince me then. Nobody raised their hand on that side. That means everybody wants to be on this side. Okay, by show of hands, who wants to be on this side then? All right, so let's talk about that side then for a second. You love your properties, okay? If I were to walk around your properties today, there's something that's very common that you probably aren't paying much attention to that causes fires. How many of you like to barbecue? Oh, I love to barbecue. Okay? So, where do you not want to see a barbecue if you're walking around your property?
Against the house.
Okay, it says against the house. Where else?
On the deck.
Balcony.
On the deck or on a balcony, right? Anywhere else?
Inside your house.
Inside the house. No, you laugh, okay? You laugh, you guys. Look, you think it happens?
It does.
You bet it does. You bet it does. I was walking my kid last night, just pushing him in the stroller in my own complex. And outside, covered balcony, the guy had discolored wall where he barbecued regularly. I stopped and I talked to him. How long you lived here? Well, I've been here about 10 years. I watched this whole place get built. Kind of wanted to say, well, do you want to watch the whole place get burned down? Because he was barbecuing. It's a violation of code to barbecue anything with an overhang. Go ahead, question back here.
That's not a question, it's we had a tenant, we have a gas loss fireplace. And they started an actual fire and they put wood in it.
Oh, boy.
And yeah, it was all burned out front part.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Go ahead, question.
So how far away from the house should you be if there's not an overhang?
What do you guys think? What do you guys think?
Neighbors?
Talk to her about it.
30 feet.
You know what? The reason I'm asking for input is there's no real safe answer on that. You just have to use your judgment. Here's why. If you say 30 feet away, you're probably in the next door neighbor's house or other things like that, right? Just make sure that there's nothing above. Okay, whether it be a tree or whether it be an overhang or a patio or whatever. Okay? Let's talk about patios for a second. Have you walked around your complexes before and paid attention to what's growing underneath them? Remember, we're talking about prevention. You don't want anything growing underneath them. If you have bushes growing underneath those patios, get rid of them. Why?
That's fire.
It's tender for fire, and it's very good tender for fire, right? Just go in the middle of the summer and look, because if it's got pine needles or something like that, just look at the bottom. It'll be all brown. You throw a match in there, you've got a blaze very quickly. Make sense? Did you hear assignment number one? What's assignment number one? Walk your properties. Pay attention to those two things, particularly this time of year. Okay? Now there is one exception to an overhang above a fire or above a barbecue. Anybody know what it is? What's that?
Should be a good.
The eaves of the house.
The what?
Eaves of the house.
The eaves of the house? I'm not sure I understand, but
Have your overhang on the roof?
uh-huh.
It has a name on it that ends over.
No? That still would probably qualify. I don't want anything covering a barbecue area. Okay? Go ahead.
Electric barbecue?
Electric barbecue? I've never used an electric barbecue, so I don't know.
What about concrete?
But concrete eaves? I don't believe the code allows for an exception in that. I would have to reread it or take a look to make sure. I can ask the firefighter if you want. I'll give you a card, you can email me, I'll get you an answer on that. Here's the only exception. The only exception is if you actually have a sprinkler installed above it. Okay, so as part of the installed sprinkler system, you're okay. I still don't recommend it. Because if it's a wax plug sprinkler system, like kind of like these, you know, it'll probably go off. And guess what? It'll set off the whole system, so don't recommend it. All right, let's stay on the outside for a second. I'm so glad somebody mentioned hydrants, but I bet if I took a survey of this whole group, that less than 10% of you had it as an X on the outside of your property. Okay? Why do we need to have the hydrant on there?
But you at least gotta know where it is or how close it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you a true story. Okay? Hydrants are often neglected by property owners. Let me ask you a follow-up question about the hydrant. You may know where it is, but do you know if it's an active hydrant? Here's the true story. Firefighters respond to a fire at an apartment complex. Apartment owners, fire is right over there. Hook up to it, crank, dry. Fire hydrant was not in service. Think the owner was surprised? That just went from somewhere in here on the scale to bye-bye apartment complex. Okay? Whose responsibility is it to know if that fire hydrant is active?
So if it's on the street,
The fire department.
no, it's the property owners if it's private property.
No, if it's on private property, you own it. But
Okay,
they'll
well,
come
see,
and
this is
test
why
it.
we're having this discussion, right? How many answers did I just hear? Probably 5 or 6 different opinions on this. Let me tell you the correct answer. You're responsible. Because if you let somebody else be responsible for it and know if your fire hydrant's active, who loses if it's not active? You lose. Okay, you mentioned private property. Guess what? There's no such thing as a public fire hydrant that doesn't have an easement. It's got a public easement for fire. Okay? So let's talk more about fire hydrants. You need to know if it's active. How do you find out?
Call the fire
Fire
department.
department.
Just call your water department. Okay? Call your water department and ask them. Ask them to come test it. Okay? They're supposed to do it like annually, but you know what? I don't think they get to them all. So ask them. Make sure that thing's active. Now back to private property and so forth. 2 things about fire hydrants. Find your fire hydrant, and number 1, make sure the curb is red. Okay? And if you're going by at different times of the day, make sure that somebody hasn't made it their parking spot anyway. Because guess what? They will. It happens regularly, you guys. One more thing. Go ahead,
It
question.
doesn't have to be within 5 feet of the road to make it known parking.
I don't know
There's a
the
distance.
parking.
If it's way back in, you can't say you can't park there, as long as they have access to it.
I do not know that. I would have to ask.
How far apart are they supposed to be, so we know where to look? I can't
I would
remember
have to
seeing
ask.
any.
Usually
Is there a
300 to
code?
400 feet.
Every 400?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. I'd have to ask to get that. I don't know. The fireman might know, but that's something I haven't trained on. So, but here's the other thing about fire hydrants. Make sure that there's plenty of clearance around them. There's nothing worse than a fire hydrant that does have overgrown bushes on it. It's hard to find or hard to hook up to. That's not fun. It's going to cost you time and may cost you just the hookup in general. Because if a fireman's in charge of regulating that hydrant, you know what, they have to stay pretty close to it. If they can't stand close to it and they can't tell what's going on with that water flow, it's pretty tough to do the job right. Okay? 3 feet of clearance. Check for it. So I'll go back to that easement thing. That's why the easement's there. If it's on somebody's yard and they're not taking care of it, be polite, but you have every right to go clean that area up. Make sure it's got the clearance. Make sense? Okay. We're still on the outside. All right? Here's another thing that I didn't see up here that we need to be thinking about. I'll paint a scenario for you. It's the middle of the night. Fire emergency gets a call. It's a fire. They give the address. Fire truck goes down the street, sees an address, goes by, doesn't see one. It's not very well lit. Goes to the end of the street because he can't tell what the number is on the building. Has to turn the fire truck back around. How long do you think that takes?
Oh, wow.
Not too fun, huh? Again, what did I just do? I went from here to here. Right? So, here's your assignment again. When you walk your apartments or your units, do it at night and make sure that clearly visible are the numbers of each of the individual buildings. I don't know how many of you drew a picture where you had multiple buildings, but I'm going to do one right here. Let's just say this is your complex here. And you got going A, B, C, and D. Okay? If a firefighter is taking the truck and they know it's in building D, and they can't see this and they have to drive, and they say they start right here, and they go around and go, oh, there's A. We're not sure which way the letters go. They drive all the way around like this. Let's make it worse. The reason they can't see is because these aren't clearly marked. They're just trying to find the right building, right? You see what I'm saying? Make sure we can visibly see that and the numbers on the individual units. So say it's building D number 101, right? And this has got 6 units in it or something like that. Okay? So, I'm giving you 2 major assignments for walking your properties. One's at night, one's during the day. Make sense? Go ahead.
In our area, the fire department says they want 6-inch tall numbers or letters on the building.
It's only to your benefit. It really is. It really is only to your benefit. Heck, when I used to deliver pizzas, I would hate it because I couldn't see the numbers. Just it's not helpful to anybody. Okay, I drew a map right here. It's a very rudimentary map. But here's another assignment for you. I don't care if you've got a duplex, a fourplex, a multiple building campus, or what. Make sure that the fire station that services your area has a current map of the complex. Okay, so let me tell you what happens when a firefighter gets a call, and it's for an apartment complex like this, and they have a campus. They just simply got a brochure on hand, and they pull it out and say, what building is what? And they try and decipher it. If they have something that's much more readable and that they know is current, it's very helpful to them. Here's a tip too. If you know your local fire department and the fire marshal that services your area, how do you think your inspection is going to go compared to if you don't know anybody that's coming? Be their friend, you guys. Go to them with that map and say, what can I be doing to make your job easier? That'll go a long ways, and you're going to learn things that you hadn't thought of that are going to keep you on this end of the spectrum. Because they'll know your property, I guarantee you. Okay? All right, I've talked a lot about the outside. Any questions about that? Because we need to move to the inside now. move to the inside. Okay, good list again. Smoke alarms. Tell me about smoke alarms. What should you be paying attention to?
Hardwired battery backup, cost,
Okay, hardware battery backup. You said batteries, right? What else?
location.
Location. What's the requirements on location?
Depends on when they were built. but-
It does. There's some grandfather laws. Say I built today, or I've done some new remodeling. What do I have to do?
2 feet of the bedroom entrance, or all the, bedroom entrances, and then the main entrance, hallway or whatever.
He's pretty close. Every hallway, every bedroom, every gathering place has to have a smoke alarm.
What was it there?
Gathering place, it's like your living
Oh,
room
okay,
or whatever,
okay.
dining area. Those areas need to have a smoke alarm. Okay? Tell me a little bit about CO detectors then. CO detectors.
It can't be too close to the appliance, but they have to be within a certain.
Down by the furnaces. Water
Yeah,
heater.
there's a lot of argument about the ones that are dual,
Okay?
they're up.
So let me talk to those points really quick. I brought up a new one, didn't I? Did anybody tell me to put CO detectors up there? No. Okay. CO is also referred to as what? What's its nickname? The silent what? Silent killer. Okay. Now, here's my thought. You talked about the duals. I like duals. Okay, I like the ones that do both. But here's what I want to make sure. CO can't happen unless there's a source of fuel. In other words, gas. Okay? So at the very least, okay, you'll hear people say have one on at least every level, and I think that's what the code says. So you have at least 2 if you have a 2-story building, for example. But if I've got a furnace room and then a gas dryer on the other side of the house, and it's all on one level, how many CO detectors do I want? I want at least 2, don't I? Now here's another tip for CO detectors. What's that? Gas range. Yep. If I've got a gas range in my kitchen, absolutely. Okay? But here's another tip for that. Gas is heavy. Smoke rises. Okay? So one of the complaints that I'll hear sometimes is, well, if I put the CO detector somewhere close to my range, it goes off all the time, and it's an annoyance. Well, that's because you're probably got it to a place where smoke is rising, and actually the code doesn't let you put detectors in the kitchen, but some people do anyway. But if you want one that's close to the range, put it near the floor. Okay? Because the CO will go down instead of up. Does that make sense? Okay? Any other questions about CO and smoke detectors?
You mentioned the hallway, bedroom, and gathering room for the smoke alarms.
Uh-huh.
So in smaller spots where you've got maybe entrances of a couple bedrooms that face each other, where are you locating these? Inside the room or in the hallway right outside the entryway?
It depends on the layout. So you're telling, okay, so say this was a hallway and I've got a room on my left and on my right. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so you should have one in the hallway and in each individual room.
And in the rooms. And like in the entryway of the rooms? So or does that matter?
I don't think it matters, just as long as you have it. Most people just put it kind of in the center somewhere. You know, if it were me,
The code was 2 feet, within 2 feet of the door.
you may be right. I haven't looked at the code recently, quite honestly. Like I said, the fireman, he knows everything about the code, but I'm the substitute tonight, so. You want? I'll give you my card. Email me, and I'll get you the exact reference because he'll know exactly where it is. So. But anyway, to me, here's something I hear often. You know, we talk about the grandfathering and so forth. Great, you're grandfathered in, but I'll tell you what, I prefer an overabundance of caution. You know what? If I spend an extra $100 to outfit the whole place,
Well, then it gets more complicated than that if they're supposed to be in series.
well,
If one
okay.
goes off, they all go off.
Yeah, series is interesting, right? I want them to be in series, okay? But I don't know, most everyone that I buy nowadays will automatically do the series. I don't have to do anything special, they just communicate with each other. So, I don't know. If you want some suggestions on that, again, I don't have a brand preference, but I'm happy to get you some more information on it. But yeah, every smoke alarm that I've worked with, if I press the button on one, it's the frequency, okay? NFPA mandates the frequency on smoke alarms. They have to be the same, no matter what brand they buy. So they should be communicating with each other to cause the series to go on. Does that make sense? So, like I said, happy to send you more information on that if you'd like. All right, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to give you a little bit more on the inside. Somebody mentioned sprinklers, okay? I do want to talk about that for a second. If you put sprinklers on your list, did you put where the riser is in the complex? They're in a room somewhere, right?
Or many rooms, depending.
Okay, that's kind of important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Boy, wouldn't I hate to go into a situation where I needed those sprinklers and to find out in the riser room that for some reason the valve was off. Not too far-fetched to say that that type of thing happens, you guys. Okay? So that brings up another point, and that is this. I had you put those X's on there. If I said, write the last date that they were checked, could you put a date? Do you have in your systems and procedures something that your property managers have to go through regularly to say these get checked every December, these get checked every February, and make sure that it happens? Again, I'm just trying to keep you over here so that you can prevent incidences. Okay, so somebody brought up, and I said I would revisit it a little bit earlier, another procedure I'd like to recommend. This has to do with when you bring people onto your property to show them the apartment. It can turn into a great selling point, but it especially needs to help happen in some kind of orientation when you move a person in. Somebody mentioned fire extinguishers. Okay, I like fire extinguishers. But they don't do me much good if I don't know where they are or how to use them. When you do your orientation and you're walking through the apartment, you got a new move-in, take 3 minutes to say, let me show you where you find your fire extinguisher. Oh, and by the way, let's just talk about when it's appropriate to use a fire extinguisher. Could you give me a 20-second spiel on when it's important to use a fire extinguisher? As opposed to water? As opposed to...
Grease fire would be very helpful not to use water.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. You see what I'm saying though, you guys? An extra 3 minutes with that new tenant explaining these things can go a long ways. I'll hear often people say, I'll say, where's your fire extinguisher? Oh, it's under the sink. Well, you know what? It's under the sink. You know what else goes under the sink? Garbage, cleaning supplies, all kinds of stuff, right? You might want to talk to your tenants about accessibility and why they want to have that readily available. Okay, so I gave you another assignment, didn't I? Add it to your procedures when you put somebody in your apartment. Okay, go ahead.
Probably the best thing to do would be to install it where it would be handy, you know, on the wall or somewhere.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I would not. I don't like it when they're underneath the sink. I like
Where
them
do
hanging
you
on the
like
wall.
them?
What's that? I like them hanging on the wall in the kitchen.
In the kitchen.
In the kitchen. Yep. Because-
Another idea would be to make sure they get checked.
Okay, so that's why I asked about the dates earlier. Okay? Because you should know the last service dates. They do expire. Same thing with your smoke alarm, you guys. They have great ones now that are 10 years and so forth. They have 10-year battery life and otherwise. But I've walked into buildings before where the thing used to be white and now it's all yellow. And it's not from smoke being on it, it's from age. Just make sure you're aware. Okay? How often should you check the smoke alarm?
Every 6 months.
Okay, so I hear twice a year? Or every 6 months? How many of you are comfortable with that? We don't have very many brave souls in here. All right, I know a lot of you agree with that. Okay, 6 months, every 6 months is great.
We ask our tenants to self-check them every month.
I like that a lot better. But here's, I would take it a step further, and I would give an incentive for them to do that. I would give something that lets me know that they've actually been checked. Because I'll tell you what a lot of states require for low-income housing or HUD properties. They require documented checks every month. And it's a great idea. Let me tell you an experience I had. I went to I work for a company called FireVert. And FireVert has a device that prevents the #1 cause of fires. And we were installing our product. It takes us about 3 minutes. The complex had sent out letters telling people that's what we were going to be doing. So we had the keys and we were just going from building to building. Had several hundred of these to do. Right? So we went in. We found stoves that were left on. The burners still active. We found people who put towels over it, over the oven door to dry them. They weren't there. We found things like this with the smoke alarm. We found people who had taped towels around the smoke alarm to prevent it from going off. We found people who had ripped them off, just they weren't even, couldn't even find them. Other things like that. So you understand why I say there's wisdom in every month checking on this? And there's wisdom in putting in your lease that if you tamper with or disable your smoke alarm, similar to what you hear every time you get on a plane, right? That there's penalties. Anyway, go ahead.
That would be a good inspection thing to go in and to do an inspection for.
Yep. See, I like this. I'm trying to give you guys some things to do that are procedural, that keep you on this end of the spectrum, right? Okay. Now I want to go to something else that I didn't see on any of it on the list, and I erased the list, but this one wasn't there. What's the #1 cause of fires? Anybody know?
Stove fire.
Grease fires.
It is at the stove. It is actually unattended cooking. Okay, so a person puts something on the stove, they fall asleep, or their neighbor next door just got that great email that, oh, you gotta see this, come look at this picture. And they just leave. And they just forget, it gets neglected. Grease fires, you mentioned grease fires. Grease fires are the most destructive type of cooking fire. They're very dangerous. So unattended cooking. On your list, do you ever inspect stoves that people have in their units?
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you about one that's very common that you should look at. It doesn't take too long to see. It's the grease pans, the drip pans. Okay. Any of you cover those with tin foil to make sure that they stay clean? I do, right? But guess what? If that tin foil isn't being changed regularly, what collects in it? Yeah, things that are pretty combustible, huh? Yeah. If I want to be on this end, if I have some kind of regular inspection or check,
Yeah, or just don't allow tinfoil.
or just don't allow, you could put that as a policy. No, you could put that as a policy. Okay, I'm not here to recommend or discourage that, right? But just make sure that you're checking for it. Now, somebody mentioned the canisters that go above. Okay, that's a suppression device. It's a great device. I'll just tell you what the firefighters experience. Okay, they are suppression. You're going to have a flame, so you're going to have smoke and fire damage before that thing goes off. Okay, if it's a grease fire and the pan has bubbled over and the pan covers parts that have bubbled over, think it'll put it all the way out? It won't.
Well, not if it remains on.
No.
If
Well,
it's
guess what?
unattended, like you said.
The canisters don't cut the power source, do they?
No.
Okay, so here's what other people told me. I go all roller coaster because this is what I talk about, right? I've had people come up to me and tell me stories. The canister went off. It didn't put the fire all the way out. Or it put the fire all the way out. It burned back through. Because the source of power, the fuel, was not eliminated. Okay? So here's the chance where I get to tell you about Firebird, which is the company I represent. Firebird is the only product on the market that actually prevents that problem. 100%. What it does is when your smoke alarm sounds, it cuts the power to the stove. To give you an idea, we talked about grease fires. 300-degree difference between when grease starts to smoke and when it ignites. University of Maryland did a study that showed that represented 5 minutes at a time. And they did that with the 3 most common cooking oils. Okay? The cool thing about Firebird is it's behind the stove. Your tenants don't know it's there. And it does not expire. I put it in once, I don't even have to maintain it. It's kind of cool that way. So,
Yeah, and you can reset it, the breaker.
yeah, just put the breaker back on and off and back on. Anyway, my goal today was just to give you guys some things to think about.
I have one.
I didn't come here to sell, so I've got my card and I'd be happy to send you whatever information you want. But I mention it because it fits the topic. And the reason the firefighter invented it was because he'd gone to so many fires that could have just plain eliminated if the smoke alarm turned on the stove. But back to what I was going to say. I've given you some things that I hope you've written down to do around your complex. And I've given you at least 5. Okay? So tell me what those 5 things were. We started on the outside. What did I tell
Property.
you? What's that?
Walk the property.
Walk the property. What am I going to look for?
House address,
Okay, house address. Clearly marked house addresses.
night or day.
Night and day, right? What else am I going to look for on the outside?
Where are the barbecues?
Barbecues. What else? One more thing I told you I need you to look for.
Fire hydrants.
Fire hydrants. There's one more thing actually.
Make sure they're working.
Make sure they're working.
Because-
Bushes. I mentioned bushes, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay? So make sure you go around and check for those. All right, those are all on the outside. On the inside, what did I say?
Smoke alarms.
Smoke
Alarm, CO2 alarm,
CO2 alarms, sprinklers,
fire source.
extinguishers. I asked you to add some procedures, didn't I? One last thing, I hope you guys don't neglect this. It had to do with a map. What are you going to do?
Give it to the fire
Yeah,
marshal.
you're going to walk down to that fire department and say, I thought it would be a nice thing to bring you guys an updated map of what my property looks like. And hey, by the way, I'd love to learn anything else that I can do to make your job easier and to make sure I'm doing what I need to be protecting our community. Okay?
Would you recommend a fire extinguisher on both levels if you have 2 levels?
I like fire extinguishers, right? I only like them if they're in a clearly visible place and easily accessible. All right? So I'll let you make a judgment call on that. As far as I'm concerned, it's great to have as many around as you want. Because I'll tell you something, I cannot do anything to prevent stupidity. All right? And there's plenty of it. I can't do anything about the guy who's smoking in bed and falls asleep. I can't do anything about the person who leaves candles lit. One falls over or whatever. I can't do anything about that stuff, you guys. I wish I could. But the things I've told you will get you a long ways towards this. Okay? All right, I've gone over time. But thanks for your time. I brought some cards. I'd love to talk to you afterwards. I'll be in the back. Okay?
All right, thanks everybody. Let me introduce really quickly. Our next speaker is Joy with Energy Savers. She's come up. She's the one who graciously provided the cookies for you tonight. So please help yourself to those and thank her when you're done.
Hi, thank you for letting us sponsor your meeting tonight. I've heard David's talk now 3 nights in a row, and I learned something more tonight. So I guess I don't retain everything I do here. So that was great. Energy Savers works closely with Rocky Mountain Power and Questar Gas's incentive programs, weatherization incentive programs. And the 3 main measures that we do is adding attic insulation, having the HVAC ducts sealed and insulated, and if you do have swamp coolers, swapping those out for a high efficiency evaporative cooler. Those are going to get you the highest return on investment, the most conservation. It's going to help lower your power and gas bills for your tenants, which lends to tenant retention. And one of the big kickers is it adds capital value to your property, kind of on somebody else's dime, and or prolong your HVAC units about 20% longer. So that lends to a higher NOI, net operating income, because you're not changing those out as often. As a property manager, I managed properties in Boise, Idaho a long time ago, and I had 2 bosses. I had 48 bosses that lived on site with me, and 1 boss that lived in a tall building downtown Boise. And his boss, you know, I had to answer to him as well, because it was my job to protect his property, to improve his property, to make sure that his property ran smoothly and stayed full. And then I had all these 48 other ones that were my direct customers that I had to keep happy. This is a measure that's going to help both ways. You're going to add value, protect the property, protect the HVAC units, add a new evaporative, long life evaporative, high efficiency cooler, and lower tenants' power and gas bills. So this is Sherm Olmsted, who works with Clear Result. Clear Result is a company that actually designs the incentive programs for Rocky Mountain Power and Questar Gas. So he has come tonight to answer any other questions that you have. Have any of you participated in these programs on your properties? Great. What did you have done?
Had all the swamp coolers replaced, one of our problems.
Great.
How recently was that?
Year ago.
Great. How did it go for you?
Great.
$20,000 worth of good.
Right. So you had $20,000 worth of new product put on your property, added capital value to your property. How do you think your tenants felt about
Actually,
you?
we had 40,000 and they gave us 20,000.
Yeah, rebates were higher? Okay. It's not quite that good right now.
Well, the evaporative coolers right now, this is the 3rd time we've done this, and so she's just gotten done telling you everything I tell you.
Oh.
She got it down pretty good. At least she was listening. One person I know was listening, it was her. There is an evaporative cooler, and we have a lot of people starting to step up and do this. This is kind of that window of time to do your evaporative coolers. It's a $500 rebate from Rocky Mountain Power, plus $150 if you have someone like Energy Savers come in and do that. We have we have a whole list of trade allies, and we've been invited here by Energy Savers to talk about some of these things. But an evaporative cooler for $500, it's not your father's or grandfather's evaporative cooler, depending on one's age. We even call them evaporative coolers as opposed to swamp coolers like all of us call them. High efficiency, $500, so you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, one of the box stores, and they have one for $550. You'll get a $500 rebate from the utility company, from Rocky Mountain Power, and then if you have someone who installs it, preferably someone who knows what they're doing, come and install it, there's another $150 to cover the parts and labor to get it done. It's the best deal I know that's going right now. And we have a number of large complexes, both large and small, stepping up to do that. Yes, sir?
I've, in some of our single-family homes, we put the Master Cool one from Home Depot in. However, my fourplexes only have the 13 5/8 inch ducts. So I couldn't find anything that small that qualified. Is there anything on the market right now that has the 13 5/8 inch ducts?
I can't answer that. There's a list that long that have all the qualifying units. And have you gone into one of the box stores and talked to them about it?
The only thing I could find that would fit my units was one of the traditional swamp coolers. It was only a $100 rebate on it.
Okay, that's kind of where we're at right now. And there's the $500, which is what we call the premium, which is really the best deal right now. The $500, there's also, you can step down to the $400 and then a $100 rebate. But we've kind of gone, those have been around for longer than 20 years, and I think that's everybody in here. We've gone from this swamp cooler to you gotta have AC to come around that energy efficiency wise, you have a 75% energy efficiency savings moving to these new high efficiency swamp coolers. So we're back to swamp coolers, evaporative coolers, whatever you'd like to call them. And so they are really putting up the money for the rebate. Yes, sir.
So what's the net cost you're talking about to do this for one unit, for one swamp cooler?
If you go down and you buy a $500 swamp cooler, you get a $500 rebate as long as it's on their qualifying list of units.
Yeah.
And then if you have a contractor install it, or you have a crew that does that, that's qualified to do that, it's an additional $150. So you're looking at $650.
So your net cost is next to nothing? Is that what you're
Right,
saying?
if the unit, correct. Depending, if you buy a unit that's say $650, a very nice big unit,
Yeah.
You're paying another $150
Okay.
for a $650 unit.
Okay.
Plus the $150.
Yeah.
There, if you buy a $400 or $450, they're not going to pay you $500. They're going to pay you $450.
Good.
It's a great deal. As a matter of fact, the commission, Public Service Commission, wanted to get rid of it at the end of last year, and went back and forth and decided